And as South Africa enters the high-risk festive period, banking institutions are now warning their clients and consumers alike to guard against fraud as well as cybersecurity trends. And with social engineering scams sharply increasing over the holidays, public education is deemed more critical than ever. Well, for this discussion, we're very pleased to have roped in the head of financial crime at Capitec, Mr. Nick Harris, to help us raise more awareness on this critical topic. Mr. Harris, it's such a pleasure. So welcome to SA Today. So the festive season period is mostly associated with a whole slew of new and improved cyber scams, right? Geared at thieves fraudulently pocketing millions from unsuspecting consumers who have received their bonuses and let their guard down on their spending habits. But what are some of the latest types of prevalent cyber scams at this particular time that you've identified?
Thanks so much. Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, December is also a bonus time for scammers and criminals out there. And we definitely see, obviously, as people spend more time doing their online shopping, scammers and fraudsters really targeted them through social media platforms and places like Marketplace. So you think you're buying a fantastic bargain. It's 50, 60% off. You click on a link on an advert that's been given to you on, for example, Facebook, and you're on a website that looks very similar towards one of our major brand names or retailers. In the meantime, that is a fake website. So we always say to people, just make sure you don't click through those links, double check where you're purchasing online, and so forth. The second big one that we're really seeing as well is what we determine to be SAPs and bank fraud department impersonation. So you may get a call from somebody pretending to be either working at the customs department for SAPs or from your bank's fraud department. And what they're trying to do is create urgency. They're trying to get you to get into a fight or flight mode, and you start panicking. And they're going to start trying to talk you through doing all sorts of weird things on your banking applications. You're going to open up that app, and then they're going to say, well, you need to make a payment to protect yourself. At that stage, stop, think, pause it, slow it down, and realize what's going on. And hang up the call. Rather phone back directly either to the SAP's call set line or to your bank's fraud department. The third big category really is around investment schemes. People at this time also have a bit of extra money in their pocket. They want to make a little bit more money, and they're looking for really good investments. And again, spend probably a little bit too much time on social media. And they enter a website where you can make back 10,000 Rand per day if you invest in this platform. And a lot of that's been driven by these AI deepfakes, and you get added to a fraudulent platform. And you see this virtual money growing, and unfortunately, it turns out to be nothing more than a scam or a Ponzi scheme, and you lose your life savings.
And I mean, I recently had a very interesting chat with the National Financial Financial Ombuds Office there, Nick, who actually gave quite a stern warning to consumers about the rise of these online shopping, phishing, and identity theft scams. But what I found quite interesting, right, is that yes, as much as the financial institutions such as your banks or the bank, for example, has its obligations to guarantee customer safety, but the sophistication of these scammers actually fools even those with a trained eye, as you've just rightly put it so. And liability often falls mostly on the consumer, Nick, who unfortunately, unsuspectingly gave their private information to the scammer, thinking it was the bank. So let's unpack both the user as well as the institution's obligations to their customers and vice versa.
Absolutely. So, I mean, firstly, I think it's a very good point. So the social engineering tactics, is what we call it, right, is that as the technology gets better, as our apps get stronger, you don't have those, those SIM swap frauds that you used to have in the past, right? But what you really find is people are the weakest link, right? Myself personally, I think we can do more as banking institutions. And for example, Capitec has brought in things like we will actually warn you that you're not on a call with us, right? So when you're in your banking app, it's going to tell you in big red letters, you are not speaking to the bank. Please hang up the call. And we won't actually allow you to make payments as well. So there is certainly technology angles to this. I think there's also better flows we could be doing during our payment processes. So, when you're making a payment to a beneficiary for the first time, maybe I can ask you better questions as a financial institution. And we've done similar things within our app environment. So we'll know that's the first time anybody's paying this beneficiary out of our 24 million clients. And they will ask you certain things like, well, why are you making this payment? I'm trying to do an investment. Where did you find this investment? Oh, no, it was on Facebook. Oh, I think this is probably high risk. Maybe you should not do this. And this has prevented over 200,000 payments and 300 million rands in savings through clients themselves just being better aware in these flows. I do see as well, I mean, we've been engaging quite a lot on a regulatory level as well with the FCA, National Ombudsman, through the Basel forums, SABC forums, and really a stronger willing coalition to fight this at scale. So the banks have come together with their what we call a National Anti-Scam Centre. That was POC in September. Some really encouraging results, and there's going to be a continued focus with this. And then under the leadership of the FSCA, really looking at what can we do collectively to really fight this, similar to models that we're seeing in Singapore, Australia, and in the UK.
That's great news. In fact, Nick, I know that some institutions do give fraud and scam warnings on their clients' apps. I know Capitec consistently does this with those selfies. There's been a furore around those selfies to approve payments. But in terms of how users actually understand and process this information, it takes more than just messages, right? We need to really go broader in terms of awareness. What are you doing to equip your users, specifically as Capitec, with vital information that's also easy to process at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the awareness and, I mean, even things like this, what we're doing here today is so important. With the rise in AI and voice cloning, we're starting to see things like in the US where it sounds like your daughter's been kidnapped and they've actually cloned people's voices using their TikTok videos. So we're going to see that coming into South Africa as well at some point. And I think what the important thing over here is twofold. Like I said, is that really much better context-rich information in critical moments like your payment flows. So before you're making those payments, like I mentioned just now, and secondly, really around the broader awareness campaigns. And I think the days of, I call it boilerplate. So it's like, do not pay this beneficiary, this is bad, are over. We have to really make sure we can translate it to a language that people understand, and also to be able to make it show really practical and engaging material. So we've been using, for example, we've got the Sistandi campaign, which is in local languages, isiXhosa, isiSotho, and the like, and really getting that into radio stations and that where our clients are and the broader communities are, to be able to understand these scans, but in a language and in a vernacular that is easily understandable. Because if I just say social engineering, what does that mean? If I say to you, watch out for this banking person who's going to phone you from the fraud department, you're much better armed and equipped to deal with this social engineering issue. And the problem is the scale of this is massive. This is a global phenomenon. We're talking scam centers and, in places like Southeast Asia where 200, 300,000 people have been human trafficked and all they do is scam outside the world. And these are some of the syndicates we track ourselves and handing that information over to DIRCO, SAPS and Interpol and the like to really go and say, well, the perpetrators are not even in this country. They sit in a place like Myanmar.
It's quite scary, right, Nick? Because, I mean, I suppose the difficult ones, as you've just pointed out, have to be the socially engineered type scams where word of mouth or even users are urged to rope in family and friends. The WhatsApp deals that you were speaking about, we saw recently, of course, with the Black Friday specials, where the National Consumer Protection Act can hardly assist the consumers. So how do you even advise clients against these too good to be true deals then being shared and passed around? Because we understand that it is so sophisticated, Nick, that these AI deepfakes are even able to store your biometric information should you have activated it even on your app.
Absolutely. And I think that's the other one is that really understanding that your cell phone, your device is the gateway for these, right? And being really clear around downloading software only from the official stores. Don't download it if somebody's giving you a link or an instruction around that. And then secondly, really around, it's that old adage, if it's too good to be true, it is. If you invest into something and it's not FSCA approved, it may have a fancy AI front, but you've got to ask yourself, why is Elon Musk reaching out to me via WhatsApp to ask me to invest in Tesla bucks, for example? And so, a little bit of that common knowledge goes a long way to pre-arm and pre-warn. And I think the other one is really around just making sure that we can work with the regulators, national consumer protection agencies alike, to be able to create the awareness around cybersecurity in itself. So, for example, if your phone gets stolen, the second person you must try and notify, or the second institution you should have, is probably your bank, right? Because your phone's got your banking app, and they can get into your banking apps if those have not been secured properly, or if they are still that in an open state. So, this concept around good hygiene factors, making sure that I turn on my biometrics, but also that I don't go and download dodgy-looking apps from dodgy-looking stores because somebody from the internet told me that I can get cheap flights, for example. And that's some of the malware cases we've seen as well.
And it's quite concerning, Nick, because we often hear that when it comes to these type of crimes, police are still very much under-resourced, specifically in South Africa, when you have to report such matters. Nick, what a great conversation. Thank you so much for giving us those tips. That was Mr. Nick Harris there. He's the head of financial crime at Capitec with those tips to ensure your banking safety this festive season against cyber scammers.